Okay, and welcome to a new episode of All Things Xbox Podcasts. Once again, I have Logan with me. Logan, how you doing?
Doing great, Jamie. This is gonna be a fun one, I think.
Yeah, it's been probably one of the craziest weeks in gaming pretty much all year because we've had next to no news. Not really compared to any other year, but the past week it's been non-stop leaks, gaming drama, developers going up against creators making alternate accounts it's all sorts. And there's the whole Vice City thing, GTA, and what can I say? It's like it's kind of crazy, really, because you know when you think about GTA and how important that is to gaming, like to have a leak like that, it's like but we've never seen anything like this. It's kind of crazy if you think about it. But we will talk about the whole GTA stuff later in the show. But first I want to start off with the whole Konami thing. Konami, people have been up against Konami for years because they weren't coming out with AAA games or many games, And the thing is, they've been putting out their football game on an annual basis, and it's gotten horrible reviews. And then just recently, they put out a trailer for Suikoden 1 and 2 remastered, and it looks fantastic. It's a really well done remaster, and it's coming to Xbox One consoles and Xbox Series consoles in 2023, and it looks amazing. Did you watch the trailer by any chance?
I've seen gameplay and clips comparing it to the original, but I didn't see the original announcement. But I've seen post up stuff, and it looks incredible. Like the jump they have from PS1 tech, obviously, to the Series X tech is just mind numbing. And how it looks true to the art style, but it's obviously way better than it was. And shouts to Ayuden Rising and Chronicles for basically making this possible, where Konami can go like, "Hey, that guy made these games for us in the past, and we've been sitting on them. I guess we can release them now since there's an appetite for it." And lo and behold, everybody's thrilled. So very happy Konami decided to actually make games again, and this will pair nicely with the spiritual successors the original creators making.
Yeah, and it's just a lot more Japanese RPGs coming to Xbox. That's a thing that people have been craving lately. And of all companies, Konami is doing what Square want. Like Square announced the pixel remasters of the Final Fantasy games, I think 18 months ago or something, and they haven't even announced them for consoles yet at all. And then you just have Konami, one of the most hated publishers in the world, just comes out and announces this. So, gamers in the end win. And I'll just say that, I never played the originals. I think those games were before my time. I was too young to play them, probably. I can't remember, but I haven't played them. But these remasters look fantastic. And I think that's how you should do these old style remasters. The Final Fantasy stuff, I think we will see at some point. Final Fantasy 1 through 6, but those are pretty much up-resed into like 1080p, and they look identical basically. But I mean, who knows what'll happen? But it's good to see Konami coming out with some games that people want, which gives me hope towards things like the Metal Gear Solid collection, which has been rumored for 2 years now. It's kind of crazy how that's been rumored for 2 years. The last rumor included that we're going to see Metal Gear Solid 1 on Xbox. I have high hopes for that. We've never seen that on Xbox platform, but yeah. While we're talking about the whole Square thing, Square Enix makes a lot of stupid decisions, and I rant about
You
Square.
don't say.
Yeah, I rant about Square Enix on a weekly basis, and I apologize. But honestly, if they stopped doing dumb stuff, I'd stop ranting about them. But anyway, so they sold off Eidos Montreal and Crystal Dynamics for $300 million. And last week, all the IPs transitioned over, and good news for them and the studios and the future IP. And then it comes out that they're going to start doing NFT stuff, and we're not going to talk about that again. That's already been, driven to the ground. Well, it comes out this past week that they no longer want to invest in game studios to have for themselves. They want to just hire out like external partners, and it just lines up with everything else they're doing. Like, I'm going to use a very American centric word. Like Square Enix is trash. Like they don't know how to treat the consumers. They complain about sales not reaching expectations when they could put their games on more platforms. They're not letting Xbox gamers or even Nintendo gamers know which Final Fantasy games is coming to the platforms, if not eventually. And then they just pull this kind of stunt, and it's like, I remember Square in the 90s as a kid, and they were at the top of their game. Like, if you saw the Square logo on a box, you knew it was going to be a good game, no matter what. And it was always a good game. Be it from Final Fantasy VII all the way to things like Gex the Gecko. They were good games. And then you have these decisions now, like 20 plus years later, like Square isn't the company we once loved. And it's a shame because, like you obviously grew up with Square's games, is right, Logan? Because, like, they beloved games.
Yeah, I even remember, like, this is gonna date us probably, but I even remember when it used to be Square and then Enix, and they were actually separate companies until they merged. And yeah, like they've had so many iconic games in the 90s and early 2000s, and like they've had good games since then, but lately they're whatever's going on upstairs in the management department or whatever, it's like I just don't get it. Like clearly they have some plan or whatever that they think they want to do, but it's not computing with me. And the fact that they're like, okay, we're gonna sell off two of our best studios for pennies on the dollar, and then because they fail to meet expectations, or maybe they're making our other studios look bad. I don't know. And then you sell them off, and then now you're like, okay, we're going to go all in on NFTs. And then, you know what? This is actually kind of expensive. We shouldn't fully own our own studios anymore. We're looking for outside investors to bail us out. And so, to me, this just screams that they're angling for a big payday and will be bought eventually. That kind of seems like the end of the game for them. Maybe I'm wrong, but I wouldn't shock me at all if Sony or Tencent, Amazon, somebody eventually just makes them a Godfather offer, they cash out, and they're done. This seems like Konami of a few years ago, where they're just like, you know what? We just want gotcha machines and yeah, we're good. It just seems like they're turning into Konami, and Konami is turning back into what Square used to be, which is bizarre.
Yeah, it just goes to show how, like, quick things can change. Like, Microsoft did a whole 180 from where they were last generation in a great place now. You have Square Enix messing up, and you have Konami of all companies doing the things that people wanted Square to do. It's kind of crazy. And then you have Sega. They just announcing games left and right for Xbox. Like, they full on multi-platform now. And Square just won't learn, you know. And then we have Phil Spencer at the Tokyo Game Show on about how he's still trying to get Final Fantasy 14 on Xbox. So who knows what's going to happen? It seems like everything's all over the place. But yeah, we'll move on. Like, I realize I rant about Square every week, but seriously, when they stop making dumb decisions, I'll stop ranting about them. And before we continue, if you're enjoying the show, please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. That 2 weeks off because it's my internet kind of hurts things, but you know, we'll move. This wasn't really a topic we were going to talk about, but Cyberpunk Edge Runners came out, and I've only seen the first episode. Have you watched any of it, Logan?
I haven't yet, but it's on my watch list. Have heard great things.
Yeah, like, I've only seen the first episode, but it's made everyone flock back to Cyberpunk because it's in a great state now. And bear in mind, I did not play the game when it was in a bad state. I've played it since the next gen upgrade and all the patches and stuff. So my gameplay experience has been bloody fantastic. And Edge Runners comes out. Again, I've only seen the first episode. It's phenomenal. And like, literally half my friends list the past few days has been playing Cyberpunk again. And then they have the expansion coming out early next year, and it's almost as if Cyberpunk's gotten this, like, second chance sort of thing, you know, because it was this hyped up RPG, and the only thing that people complained about was its performance and stuff. Well, all that stuff's fixed now, and there's this new wave of hype. And it just goes to show, like, giving things another chance down the line works. We saw No Man's Sky. That had a huge comeback. The developers went quiet for a year, and then they came back and had huge expansions. And then you have Cyberpunk. Eventually, they fixed it, and they have this anime perfectly timed. And now it has like this, like the second highest like count they've had of concurrent players on Steam for Cyberpunk, and it's good to see because genuinely, it's a fantastic game. I know people complain about its performance and its visuals at launch, but seriously, now it's in a great place. So if you've been putting off playing Cyberpunk, watch the anime, play Cyberpunk, have a good time. It really, genuinely good game. Yeah, the only bad thing I think about Cyberpunk is the gunplay. There's something off about it. So it's still, playable. You can get by. But I think you can tell it's a first-person shooter made by RPG developers. Because there's no... I don't know, when you aim in Halo or Call of Duty or Battlefield or pretty much any other first-person shooter, like, it's snappy. You know where you're going to aim. You know exactly where your crosshair's going to go. But in Cyberpunk, it's a bit heavy. That's the only downside of the game. Other than that, fantastic RPG. I highly recommend people go get it. And it's on sale all the time. I think recently it was going on sale for about £20. So if you want to get into a big RPG, now's maybe the best time to get into it. Especially watch Cyberpunk Edgerunners first. And another thing that we weren't going to talk about till later, but I want to talk about it now. There's been drama in the YouTube space. Shocker, I know. So basically, if you've been on Twitter for the past month or two, you notice that these accounts pop up. The Insider, or all this other stuff. There's usually 1, 2, or 3. Well, anyway, this account called The Insider had been posting leaks for the past, I think, 3 months or something. Leaked everything Assassin's Creed event related. Talked about some PlayStation stuff and some Xbox stuff, and a lot of it was really accurate and spot on. Well, it turns out that this person accidentally logged into the wrong account on Twitter and replied to someone using their main account. This has happened before, and it will happen again. Well, it turns out, yeah, big oof sticks. And it's like this person, turns out, is in fact a YouTuber with over 100,000 subscribers, and it left me with a big question. This person gave up great chances. This person could have made a great career in YouTube if he put the work in, right? With that subscriber count, use his knowledge to make content ready for when it's announced. But no, he didn't. He actually made a secondary Twitter account to get likes. Like, that is mind blowing. Like, this person was in a place of privilege. He was getting news. Like, if you're a big enough YouTuber, you will get details, video, all this stuff early so you can make content. Well, this person wasn't doing that. This person was making a secondary account to leak stuff on Twitter. And it just, like, it's mind-boggling because, like, there's people like me and other people in the community that work their asses off on making content for these opportunities. And then you have someone that is in a place where they can do this stuff. And they just squander it. Like, today, I'm still blown away. Like, I've told other people about it. They, like, shaking their head, like, why would this person do that? For likes on Twitter, right? Not to, make their career on YouTube, like, long-term or better or whatever. Not for monetary reasons, although I don't know if this person was making money on Twitter because you can do that now. But, yeah, this person was leaking non-disclosed, content or information on Twitter for likes. Logan, what's your thought on that? Because, like, I'm still mind blown by it.
It's a it's a giant congratulations, you played yourself kind of moment, because it's like you had access to all this stuff and then you're leaking it through a burner account basically, and then you accidentally log in with your own to reply, and so now your cover's blown, and now pretty much whatever trust you have in the industry is toast at this point. I mean, hopefully you can, I believe in second chances, all that. Hopefully somebody, can rebuild and learn from this and stuff, but still, I mean, like, my goodness, to take that opportunity when you have like hundreds of thousands of subscribers, massive account, massive information. You're in a place of privilege and a place of trust. Like an NDA is not just like a legal document, which obviously matters and is big and like government scary, don't mess with it. But it's like your word on something. And for some people, I guess maybe that doesn't matter. I'm somebody who's like, if I give my word on something, I mean it. So just the idea that you would just completely just throw that aside just so you could talk about something early or get a few, likes or laughs or whatever online is just mind numbingly just nuts. And it goes to show this whole clout chasing thing has gotten way out of hand. An insider thing, just and then you see journalists and insiders sniping at each other about it. It's kind of ironic in a way, because it's like, oh, if a journalist gets inside information and then they leak it, nobody bats an eye. But if this guy does it, it's something bad. But then again, it's like, how did they get the information? Like we'll talk about later, the dude who acquired information from gaming companies and Uber, for instance, that was not legally gained, and that was stolen and released. That's one thing, and then reporting's another. So it's just an interesting discussion.
Yeah, I mean, you could look at it like it should be it should work both ways. Like journalists leak this stuff and it's fine, and you have YouTubers or people on Twitter leaking it and they can get sued. Well, when a lot of these people like leak this stuff on like Bloomberg, Kotaku or stuff, like a lot of the time like they found information and they haven't signed an NDA, so that's how they can get away with it. But like the way that some of these YouTubers or this insider, like these people like literally signed NDAs, like they couldn't like talk about it, but like the clout thing's like just mind blowing because like why? Like this person could have made a big career out of making content ready for let's talk about the Assassin's Creed thing. When Mirage was announced, this person could have made content ready to go the second that event finished. But he didn't, and he did it for likes on Twitter. And the thing is, people searching for Assassin's Creed Mirage content on Twitter was big that night. Even I was searching for it. I was contemplating making content for Assassin's Creed Mirage, and it just did it for likes. And it's just happening all the time now, I notice, and we will see more accounts like this pop up, and the same thing will probably happen. But like, I've got to a point that as someone that covers content, Xbox gaming and all that stuff, like I think leaks are kind of ruining all the fun in gaming, because 99% of gaming news now is either acquisitions or leaks. And yeah, as a gamer, like content creator, you do have to talk about leaks, but it just seems like every game's getting leaked now. There's no excitement. Nothing really is a surprise anymore. And that's kind of a shame. Like, I think it would have been cool for Assassin's Creed fans to have seen that event and not know what was coming, because I knew about Mirage and what was going to be in it, but I would have liked to have seen that trailer without knowing anything up front. And these clout chasers are just ruining it for everyone. And I think there are things that people should leak in the future, like not necessarily game development footage, which we're going to be talking about, but like the whole NFT thing with all these companies, But like we've had the Xbox Series like S leak, we've had the Xbox One S and One X leak like weeks in advance, and it's just annoying. I don't know. I just hope this thing like kind of calms down. Like the people making Twitter accounts to leak this stuff. Like, why risk your livelihood? You're going to ruin your career. You're ruining your chance at making anything for yourself in the gaming space. Like that person that made that account, that person will never be able to work in gaming again or gaming content creation because no one will trust them. And yeah, congratulations, you played yourself. Like, wow. Anyway, we'll move on because like as embarrassing as that was to actually see yesterday, it's kind of sad at the end of the day. Like, just for likes, like little likes on Twitter, it's a shame. Anyway, we'll move on. This is another topic I didn't have planned because I actually wanted to get Logan's reaction on this. So, at the PlayStation Showcase thing last week, it turns out that Hogwarts Legacy is getting an exclusive quest line and an exclusive store. Now, my opinion on this stuff is that I don't care. Whenever you see these like pre-order bonuses or exclusivity content, for things like, I think Dead Space 3 came with a specific gun and something if you ordered a game. I never used the code. I never used those codes because the quests in those games are always filler, right? I remember Deus Ex Human Revolution. That had a specific quest line tied to the £90 collector's edition, right? And you think, well, that's kind of ridiculous, isn't it? Having a quest line in an RPG dedicated to a £90 collector's edition. Well, that that quest line required you to sneak into a building that had 2 rooms. You had to speak to a person and then leave. And this actually had like a trailer on YouTube. People were hyping it up, and it was literally a quest you finish in about 30 seconds. And that's why I don't get bothered about this like exclusive content locked to certain platforms, because like even though we don't like that kind of stuff in general, I don't think it's worth getting angry about, because when Hogwarts Legacy was announced to have this quest in this shop for a year, all I saw on Twitter, and like if you look at all the replies, there's people like really angry. And it's like, I get being annoyed by the whole exclusive content thing, but like people genuinely upset and angry over what a minute long quest line taken out of a 90-hour game. Like, it's not worth it. And if you've been following me on Twitter for a while, you know that I'm a fairly relaxed person. Like, nothing really gets to me. So this, like, tiddlywinks when it comes to, like, DLC, I don't care. I don't think people should be bothered. Like, what's your thought on this?
I'm actually kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum on this one, but I totally get what you're saying, that in the end, a small quest or some skins or whatever shouldn't greatly impact the experience for everyone. But to me, it's kind of just the principle of it. It's like, if you have a game and it's multi-plat, then why on earth are you um, shilling out content to another company and making it exclusive to a platform, yet you're not making the game exclusive? That just seems kind of really scuzzy to me. And then as far as pre-order stuff, like, honestly, some of those skins and items and gear and whatever I've gotten in pre-orders and stuff has been some of my favorites in games. Like, be honest, like I remember the Dragon Age tie-in armor for Mass Effect 2, and like the Hitman Sniper Challenge that was a pre-order bonus for one of the Hitman games. And like, those are just a couple examples, but I've gotten some really cool gear and missions from those. But in general, they're not the biggest things most of the time, but there are a few that matter. And at the end of the day, it's just a matter of making things fair. And I just think it's really sucks that one of the biggest, most anticipated titles for a franchise that's never had a game on this scale, it's finally happening, and you already have all this drama. We won't go into it, but behind the scenes involving creator and other things that has put attention on it that is not the most positive, and then you just add pour gasoline on it with, oh, by the way, we've taken some content and just made it only for this one. It just doesn't seem like a very smart or goodwill inducing idea to me.
When it comes to these types of deals, as far as I'm aware, like when they sign an exclusivity deal for marketing and all that stuff, the item is to entice people to buy it on that platform. But the reason why the company, like the developer, wants it is because, as far as I'm aware, the company in charge of the deal, they take care of the marketing. So whenever you see Hogwarts Legacy trailers, that's Sony paying for them, as far as I'm aware. And, would it be cool if everyone got everything? Yeah. Would I be lying if I said I didn't claim the Dragon Age 2 armor for Mass Effect? Like, no, I'd be lying. I claimed that the second it was available. I don't care. But, like, yeah, I get it, right? But I think, there has been, like, a really big, like, overreaction to it. Like, remember when Watch Dogs came out in 2014? that game had quests that were specific to Best Buy, GameStop, Game. I think Tesco in the UK even had like its own quest. Like, but whenever you played any of those quests, you could do them in about a minute. Like, and if you did want to get all that content, you would have had to have bought the game about 30 times, like, from different countries even. So it was all over the place. But I can see why people are annoyed. Would it be cool to have that shop, which, as far as I know, you're just going to get more discounts. But it is going to be one of next year's biggest games. Sony's going to go like all out on the marketing for it. Like, I think this game's going to sell over 10 million copies, easy. It's probably going to be one of the best selling games next year. But yeah, I think that if it ends up selling well on Xbox, that'll just go to show that people don't really care about that small crap. Like, I don't think that tiny quest in the store is really going to sway people that much. That's just me. People can disagree with me or whatever. Anyway, we'll move on because the thing is, the whole timed exclusive thing. In an ideal world, we'll get everything together. But you look at Sony doing these moves, and then you have Microsoft, buying Activision, and Sony, Jim Ryan's saying all sorts of crap, which we'll talk about in a bit. But yeah, I can see it being annoying. Anyway. Next topic. Actually, before we go, if you're enjoying the show, please like, share, and subscribe. Really helps the channel out. Super chats are all live. I'm needing to do the whole ad thing. So, Long Fallen Dynasty coming to Xbox in 2023. It's coming to Xbox One consoles and Xbox Series consoles. Has a demo. It was just announced out of nowhere. Logan, have you played it?
I haven't played the demo yet, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm a huge Team Ninja guy, so I'm definitely looking forward to checking it out.
Okay, well, fortunately, I've played it. I've got gameplay up right now for people watching, and it's amazing. Like, I can't compare it to Elden Ring. People will say Elden Ring's a 10 out of 10, all this stuff. Elden Ring is a masterpiece. I can't compare it to that because it's just a small part of the game, but it is fantastic. It's got smooth gameplay. It's actually surprisingly easy to get into. It's not an easy game, I'll put it this way. It's probably as hard as Elden Ring, maybe. But here's the thing, right? The thing that I think what people are really going to like about Long Fallen Dynasty is that if you go to any of the flags in the game, you can call in an AI partner. So much like how you can call other people in Dark Souls and stuff, it kind of works the same. It's almost exactly the same structure as a Dark Souls / Elden Ring game, and it's just fun. They did put a challenge out that if you finish the demo by, I think, the 24th of this month, you get an exclusive helmet in the full release. Well, it looks like I'm having trouble. I'm not going to be able to beat the boss because it's kicking my behind in. But yeah, people should really download it. I will say this, there are some bugs, but it's weird bugs. And bugs I've never experienced in any games. So the game ran fine. I had it running in performance mode, 60 frames, all that stuff. But sometimes when you're playing a video game on Xbox, you'll have a grey screen pop up and say, press A to confirm you're using a controller. I got that maybe once every 30 seconds, which made no sense. I've never had that bug in any Xbox game, ever. And it just kept on popping up. I'm fighting a boss, and then that thing pops up asking me to confirm I'm using a controller. It's like, it's in my hands. I'm playing the game, and it's asking me if I'm using a controller. Like, it was all over the place. But it's fantastic. I highly recommend people download the demo. Again, you've got about 4 days to play it and get that helmet. I will say this. I think the combat's going to be a lot easier for people to get into if they aren't Souls fans, because it kind of reminded me of, like, Ninja Gaiden in a way, like the gameplay. It's kind of a cross between the old Ninja Gaiden games and Elden Ring, and it just works. A lot of people are saying it's like Sekiro, but unfortunately I was terrible at Sekiro, and I'm somewhat okay at this. So, I mean, what does that say about me or the game? Either way, it's a lot of fun. I highly recommend people download it. It's a pretty lengthy demo in my opinion. And the only thing I think is bad about the game is that its tutorial is a bit long. That's it. Other than that, I think people should play it, have a lot of fun. and it only took me about 4 hours of playing to figure out that I can change my armor. That's on me, not the game. But yeah, that's coming to Xbox Game Pass in 2023, which it's going to be a huge title. Yeah, we'll talk about Assassin's Creed before we get into the really big stuff. So more information came out on Assassin's Creed Mirage, and it turns out it's going to be a lot like the older style Assassin's Creed games. It's going to have parkour. The combat's going to be a bit more refined. From what I can tell, it's going to be a cross between the old style Assassin's Creed combat and Assassin's Creed Origins. So in my opinion, that sounds really good. There's going to be a big emphasis on social stealth, so much like the Assassin's Creed games before Unity, or should I say before Origins, and it looks like it's going to be a good game. There have been reports, and a lot of people listening have noticed this, that in the store it said in the US that there's real life gambling in the game. Well, according to Ubisoft, that was just an error. And believe me when I say that wouldn't be allowed on the Xbox store because Microsoft doesn't allow real world gambling in their stores. So I wouldn't worry about that. But yeah, it's going to be a $49 game. Logan, what's your thought on it being a older style Assassin's Creed game but with new gameplay?
Sounds perfect to me. I'm well documented as being a pro old style for Assassin's Creed. I like the modern ones as well. There was just something special about, playing as Altair or Ezio, and you're in Jerusalem, the holy city during the Crusades, or you're climbing a cathedral during the Renaissance, and assassination missions and stuff, and these historical figures, and it's just harkening back to that, but taking what they've learned with the modern ones seems like a spot on mix to me.
Yeah, I've played every single Assassin's Creed game. The only ones I haven't played were the ones on the 3DS and Liberty. I still need to play that. Fortunately, that's included in the remaster of 3. But yeah, I've played every Assassin's Creed game, and I even had the bad one on the Nintendo, not the Nintendo, the PSP. And remember, the PSP had one nub, so to rotate the camera, you actually had to hold down the right trigger and use the face buttons. It was so awkward, and it was terrible, absolutely terrible, but I played it. But yeah, I loved all the Assassin's Creed games for different reasons, and the newer games, like, they are filled with a lot of bloat. Like, they are fun and gorgeous games, don't get me wrong. The soundtrack's incredible, great combat, but there's something about those older games and the story, and like I've seen a lot of older style Assassin's Creed fans like come out the woodwork and they're excited again. Like, I've never been this excited for an Assassin's Creed game in about like 5 years, 6 years. Like, I loved Origins and I loved Odyssey, and I still haven't finished Valhalla. It's just too big. It's like I'm playing for 90 hours and I've still got like half the game to go. But I just found the story more interesting back then when you had the Templars and the Assassins, all that stuff. But anyway, it looks like, Assassin's Creed going forward, they will be going back to RPGs. I will say this, Ubisoft is one of the most reactive companies out there. So I think if Mirage sells well, we will see two kinds of Assassin's Creed games from them in the future. They'll have these smaller $50 style games in the old style, and then we'll have the $70 open world RPG games. Just my opinion. I think they'll do that. I would like them to do that because, like, I think variety helps that kind of a genre. Like, when you have all these different timelines and settings and stuff, like, they don't all have to be open world RPGs. Like, I wouldn't want an open world RPG set in Rome. Like, I had Assassin's Creed in Rome. It was amazing. But yeah, and all I will say is before we end the topic, a lot of those games are still on sale on Xbox Live, so I highly recommend it. Some of the games, including Ezio, The Collection, and Vogue, have FPS boosts on Xbox Series X and S. Highly recommend it. Anyway, we'll move on. Actually, we'll move this into the next topic. So, leaks. People have leaked games in the past, like, the people's going for clout. We've had Kotaku in the past leak stuff, Bloomberg leak and stuff, and recently we had the GTA leak, right? Which we will talk about. But it came out today that the leak for Assassin's Creed Syndicate completely changed how Assassin's Creed works. Apparently they weren't going to be open world RPGs. Like, the reception to that leak completely made Ubisoft do a 180 and change the genre of the actual franchise. Now, it turns out that one of the developers said this, but also Jason Schreier came out and said, well, they were making the game a year beforehand. So it's like, who do you believe? Do you believe the developer of the game or someone that used to work at Kotaku? I'm not saying that, Jason Schreier is like, a shill and someone you shouldn't believe, but I will say that, he's shown his sides in the past. Like, when you have someone working at Bloomberg that acts like that, it's a bit weird. I don't know, what's your thought on that, Logan? Like, I know, like, Jason Schreier blocks people left and right that he hasn't even spoken to. Do you think we should believe the developer or Jason Schreier?
Um, I don't know. That's a tough question because I know opinions are mixed on how he handles things and how he discusses with folks in terms of, what he tolerates or not and his opinions, but man is good at his job as an investigative journalist, and he has pieces out there and they're well written and he knows what he's talking about. But it is odd that a developer would have such a different view on the thing. And, especially for that, like, if you're a journalist and you're reporting these things, you're reporting what is being given to you or talked to you about or that you've done digging on. But then the developers, they're in the room themselves and they're doing this and they obviously have a very different opinion. So it is kind of odd to see that drastic of difference, but not surprising, especially because the fact that if you put a story out there that says, like, okay, the game is going to be this way, this way, this way, and then everybody tears it to shreds, it's not surprising that the company would go, oh no, okay, you know what, scrap that. We're just going to completely change the game. And then they come out and be like, my story had no effect on that whatsoever. I'm like, well, clearly something happened after your story came out, and then now the game is way different than it was going to be. And it just leads more to the mistrust and the kind of the animosity between journalists, leakers, and the fans, and this weird dichotomy within the gaming industry. It's a circus, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a bit weird seeing the relationship between, developers and, big media people like Bloomberg and all that stuff. It's weird. Anyway, I think, leaks going forward, they kind of bad in a way. If it changed Assassin's Creed that much, who knows what it's going to do for other games. And, before we talk about the big one, GTA, we have a lot of big topics today. Yeah, I think it's good that we'll talk about some recently released games. Deathloop just released on Xbox, as well as Hardspace Shipbreaker. That game I've been talking about for 2 years online. Logan, have you had a chance to play any of them yet? It hasn't been a lot of hours since.
I've got them installed and primed and ready to go, but I haven't really gotten too far in them. And I've been trying desperately to get my hands on a physical copy of Deathloop because I have the Steelbook from Best Buy. I had the foresight to get it a while back and hold on to it, knowing it'd be coming to Xbox eventually. But every place is sold out. Like, Best Buy doesn't have it, Amazon doesn't have it, GameStop, like, I haven't even seen a listing for it. Bethesda store I went to, and it has a listing but no price and doesn't say anything about availability. It's like, how on earth are we supposed to get a physical copy of this game?
Yeah, as far as the physical release, like, I've seen people post pictures on like Reset Hour and stuff, so it exists. I just, how many is out there is the question. But I have managed to play a tiny bit of it, and it has a bunch of different visual modes. It has performance ray tracing, has performance visuals, has performance only, ray tracing only. There's a lot. So, like, literally pick whatever you want. Personally, I played on performance visuals, so you get really good visuals at 60 frames per second, and it is butter smooth. And the gunplay is good. It's got that arcane gameplay that you've played before. It plays like Dishonored and Prey and stuff. But it's a gorgeous game, really gorgeous game. So I think people should download that. And also Hardspace Shipbreaker. You play as you salvage spaceships basically. That's all you do, and there's a story involved. Funny enough, the game only has 10 achievements. A lot of them actually pretty big achievements. It looks like you're going to be able to play the whole game in one go and get them all. But it's just a relaxing game. Basically, you play as what Isaac Clarke's job was before he went to the Ishimura. You tear apart spaceships with a plasma cutter. And for people that are probably going to play it tonight or tomorrow, I recommend don't use a plasma cutter to detach fuel cells. You'll learn the hard way, like I did. And I've also got gameplay going on in the background. But yeah, it's a fun game. I like the fact that we're getting these like really relaxed games. Like people joked about Power Wash Simulator, but it's weirdly relaxing. And Hardspace Shipbreakers like that as well. You just go in, tear apart a spaceship, put them into the right, the bits into the right parts and stuff. It's just good. I highly recommend it. I've been looking forward to this game for 2 years. It is an Isaac Clarke simulator, hacky sacked. But that's why it's so good. If they put aliens in this in the future, who knows? It'll be the best game ever made. But the game has 2 modes, performance and visual mode. I've actually been playing it on visual mode because you're moving at slow pace anyway due to the 0G. So I didn't really see any advantage to using 60 frames. That said, the option's there. But it's a gorgeous game. Really gorgeous game. And I know that they cancelled the last generation version about 2 months ago. Honestly, I don't know how that game would have ran on that CPU. I think PlayStation 4s and Xbox One consoles would have melted if they tried to play this game. Like, there was a part where I had a ship dismantled into maybe about 60 pieces, and all these different pieces have tracking and all this stuff, and, like, I can't imagine last generation being able to do that. Like, even my Xbox, like, was, a little bit loud, for its fan. But honestly, great game. I highly recommend people download it. It teaches you how to just strip a ship from the beginning, and the ships get more and more difficult to take apart. You will die a lot in this game, but the good thing is there's no penalization. Literally, you can get into debt as much as you want in this game, and you can pretty much max it out. Doesn't really matter. There's infinite lives. There are different modes. There's a time attack war and all that stuff. There's leaderboards. Honestly, this is probably going to be one of my favourite games of the year. And you just tear apart spaceships. It's amazing. But again, that's also on Xbox Game Pass. There's no physical version yet, but they have said they might do it. I'll update people on that on Twitter. But yeah, good games. A good time to be a gamer. Honestly, Game Pass got some new announcements today as well as those 2 games. So there's Valheim's coming to PC Game Pass. That's also coming to Xbox Game Pass in the future. Something called Grand Prix Pet Patrol, nobody cares. Moon Scars. This game looks really interesting. It's actually a 2D side-scroller action soul-style game. Have you kept up to date with that, Logan? Because people have been talking about this a lot lately.
Moon Scars looks really cool, but I haven't seen too much on it.
Yeah, it looks really cool. I think people like it. There's a game called Spider Heck coming to Game Pass, and I played the demo. Basically, it's PvP spiders with lightsabers. That's literally it. I'm not even kidding. Let's Build a Zoo. That's by the creator of Descenders. And the funny thing about this game is that the creator of Descenders has been for Game Pass for the past 2 years. He's always defending it on Twitter, saying he got a good deal and all this stuff. Well, that's his game. And his next game after this is also coming to Game Pass, which is, I think it's called Soccer Story, which is basically a football RPG. I'm not calling it soccer again. And then there's Grounded's full release is coming. That's going to be the full campaign and stuff. Slime Rancher 2, and something called Beacon Pines. So there's something for everyone. Honestly, yeah, so Valheim is coming to console next year. There's a small team making Valheim as well. If anyone's been following that game on PC, that game was massive on PC last year. It was huge. A lot of the biggest streamers in the world were playing it, Asmongold and all that stuff. Huge game. But small team making it, and it's going to be 4K visuals and all that stuff next year on console. It'll be worth the wait. Personally, I can't wait for it. I've watched hours of gameplay of that game, and it just looks great. Anyway, we'll move on. But yeah, good time to be an Xbox Game Pass subscriber. And by the way, while we talking about Game Pass today, I saw more people talking about how like games shouldn't launch in the service and stuff. This seems to be a bi-weekly topic. Um, when will this end? Like, like Microsoft's continuing to add games into Game Pass. Sony's paying to keep games off Game Pass. So doesn't that tell you that it's kind of successful? Like, I don't know. It's a strange topic. Anyway, we'll move on. Right, screw it. Let's talk about GTA. So Grand Theft Auto 5 came out in 2013. The multiplayer went live in October. The launch was terrible, but it turned out to be one of the biggest games in the world. I think it is the best-selling game in the world outside of Minecraft. And, you know, whether people like the game or hate the game, you have to respect that it's sold that well. And yeah, I love Rockstar games. They've made some of my favorite games of all time. You know, GTA 4, Vice City, and you know, Red Dead Redemption 1 and 2, incredible games. Max Payne 3, they made a good table tennis game somehow. Well, for decades now, their games have not leaked. They've had basically the only franchise that has never leaked. I mean, I remember Red Dead Redemption 2, there was a photo of a wooden hut leaked maybe a year before the game was announced. And people were freaking out saying, is this Red Dead Redemption 2? It was. And they changed the hut in the final release. But it turns out some hacker person got a hold of a lot of gameplay and posted it onto YouTube and Twitter and all over the place. And it was about 90 minutes of GTA footage, pre-dev stuff, alpha gameplay, so wireframe models, early models, character models, all this stuff. Yeah, we've never seen a leak like this for video games. Like, a hacker leaked into Capcom's database about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and got some stuff, but nothing like this. We've never seen a video game leak like this, ever. And it's kind of scary because they have the source code for 4, so should I say 5 and 6, and that's kind of a bad thing for 5 because it could affect the online for people, which is, again, they have a huge fan base playing online, and it's kind of weird because the reaction to this leak has been all over the place. You know, developers are saying it's bad, and it is bad, by the way. I hope Rockstar can recover from this. It's awful what happened. I hope it never happens again to anyone, because this is going to affect people's jobs, people's livelihoods, and, you know, the game itself will be delayed. Like, Rockstar did come out and say everything's going to be normal. I guarantee you, internally, this game, GTA 6, has been delayed. I shouldn't have said that, but I think that it's a terrible thing, you know. And about the footage, by the way, I thought what was shown was good, right? I thought what was shown was actually really good. That's years away from being finished. Like I said, 2025 minimum. And what we saw was good. The character models were good. There was buildings with tons of detail and stuff. There was character prompts like you get in Red Dead Redemption 2 if you're holding someone up on a train. That's in this game. And what can I say? I think it looked really good for early footage. But the problem is that you have these normies online, right? These normies that they play one game a year. They think, you know, Madden is the only game that exists. And then they see this and they think this is what it's going to look like when it's finished. And the reaction was people were saying the game looks crap. Like, what the game's going to look like this when I play it? It's like, no, it's not going to look like that, numbnuts. Like, it's an incomplete game with wireframe models. Like, stop it. You know, and I was scrolling my Twitter feed. I even had replies to me saying, oh, I hope Rockstar can recover this. People saying, oh, it looks like a 360 game. Wireframe models, you know. I don't know, Logan, before I rant more, what was your thought on people's take of this and the whole, like, leak thing?
Yeah, the takes is interesting. Is like, if you say it looks like an incomplete game, it's like, well, no crap. It is an incomplete game. They literally it's in early development. And if you're saying it looks like a 360 game or like its predecessor, GTA 5, and that's honestly pretty good for the stage it's at right now. And I thought the character models looked good, and it obviously confirmed that there's going to be 2 protagonists at least. There's going to be a female lead and a male lead, and the clothing models, the weapons, the walking animations, everything looked really good in that regard. And I'm excited for it. I'm honestly more excited now after all this. Even though we shouldn't have been able to see all this, but the fact that we have now and it's out there, it I'm excited for it. I think it'll be a nice take on the franchise. But yeah, it absolutely is damaging to a studio to have some kid that is somehow a hacking savant and has not only hacked into Uber, but now Mighty Rockstar and has acquired source codes and files and gameplay video and alpha and just all this stuff. Like, whoever this individual is they're quite good at what they do, and they've really opened a massive can of worms that the industry hasn't seen a leak of this scale before. We've had big leaks and like, oh, a trailer has leaked early or some alpha footage or Nvidia leak that had a whole bunch of titles that were in their list that are coming true, but ever like this much gameplay shown. And it's probably just going to make things even tighter and secrecy even more prevalent in the industry, which is unfortunate, but that's going to be a drawback from this.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when Batman Arkham Knight was just about to be announced. One of the video game websites in the UK had the video game art up early, which basically confirmed the name, the style of like the graphics and stuff, and apparently like that really affected Rocksteady developers. Like even though people were like, "Oh, this game looks amazing," just off a few screenshots, but this stuff really affects developers. And the gaming industry, they aren't. It's not really transparent. Like we know about movies years in advance. We know about which actors are going to be playing certain roles. So, like, honestly, part of the reason why I don't talk about movie news is because I hate how movie news is. Like, we know about characters in films years in advance, which kind of spoils the plot. I hate it. But with video games, like, it's always been very secretive, and to have this leak, it's kind of awful. Like, it's really going to affect people. And here's the thing, like, I've seen people cheer it, saying, "Oh, we're going to get GTA 6 early because this." No, it's going to be delayed if anything, and as it should be because of the reaction. Like, I put it like this: lead developer of Pentiment, posted on Twitter saying like the leak of that game damaged like the reception of it because people didn't know what it was. People were like, "Is it third person? Is it first person? Is it over the shoulder or whatever?" It's like, no, it's a side scrolling detective RPG. But that leak got people's hopes up, and he said like to this day like they're still recovering from that. And Assassin's Creed every year got these leaks and stuff, and I think there's a difference between like ports of games coming to different platforms being one thing, right? Like Dragon Quest. I knew about Dragon Quest 11 coming to Xbox before it was announced. I didn't talk about it. I kind of hinted at it on Twitter, but the thing is, it's like that wasn't really a big deal. Like leaking that if I did or if anyone did, but like leaking actual gameplay like years in advance, like that's why we didn't see Doom 2016 until like 6 months before it was released or whatever, because they did not want to show people this game that would be pulled apart by other companies and people online, because every time a game gets announced now, the comments are just people saying, "Oh, I hate the animations, the janky animations," and people like literally go to any trailer of any game on Twitter. It's just people complaining all the time, and I can't imagine as a developer that being nice. Yes, we can be constructive as we should be, but like people saying this game looks mid, like no, like stop it. It's just like this is going to hurt developers. This is going to hurt the games we get in the future. And like, who knows what else got leaked as well? Because Rockstar have other games in development. They have partnerships with things like Remedy making the Max Payne games. I don't want that stuff to leak as much as I like Max Payne. It's just a bad situation. Hopefully, the developers can recover from it. And the thing is, GTA 6 when it comes out will probably be a masterpiece. We obviously saw the setting and certain things, and as a GTA fan, I can't wait to see it. But I'm willing to wait because these finished products are always good. Like, they've never had a bad GTA. Ever. Even the PSP ones were good. But I don't know. I think we'll move past it because, like, I think, like, obviously it's a bit of a risk talking about this subject because Rockstar and Take-Two have been known to go around and strike people for just talking about stuff. Well, I'm on Rockstar's side. Like, they should do everything they can to make the situation better. But yeah, we have to talk about it. It's probably the biggest gaming news of the year outside of the Activision deal, and it's a terrible thing that's happened, unfortunately. But anyway, we'll move on. This is a topic I wasn't going to talk about, but I'm going to rant anyway. So we're getting multiple rants from me today. Starfield. I've been posting that I'm looking forward to it. If you follow me on Twitter, I talk about Starfield every now and then. It's because I love sci-fi RPGs, and we don't get enough. I talk about Mass Effect at least twice a day because it's amazing. And Starfield gave me this excitement that I haven't had since Mass Effect 3, right? This big sci-fi single-player RPG. And whenever I talk about it, people bring up No Man's Sky. And it's absolutely mind-numbing because the games aren't alike. They both set in space and there's planets. If anything, we can compare Starfield to Star Citizen. Really, if you think about it, that has a full single-player story with multiple planets, multiple solar systems, base building, all that stuff. Like, that's the only thing you can compare it to. You can't really compare it to No Man's Sky. There's 18 quintillion planets in that game, and you do the same thing on basically every single planet. Not that it's a bad game, by the way. No Man's Sky has came a long way since its original launch. In fact, they even exceeded people's expectations. Like, the game is a million times better now than what people wanted in the beginning. But people comparing this game to No Man's Sky every single time people bring it up. And I get it. Maybe it's like these, basic people that when they saw Avatar in 2009, they thought, oh, Smurfs because they blew. Really small-minded people. I'm going off it because it's so annoying. Like, Logan, I know you've seen this too, right? The whole it's No Man's Sky type thing.
Yeah, it's goofy take. I mean, I get that they're both in space and they both have a bajillion planets to explore, and you have your own ship that you can customize and make, and you fly around and you do stuff. But that is where, in my opinion, the comparisons end. Because No Man's Sky has a very different take on worlds and how you go about things and what your purpose is in the game. Starfield is going to be very much like Skyrim and Fallout and Bethesda DNA for RPGs, but in space with exploration and some other stuff. Both are great games and great ideas. They're just very different. And so to just continually say it's just that, but their game of it is just a lazy take. I mean, that would be just like comparing every medieval fantasy game to each other, or oh, it has a dragon in it, it must be this, or every FPS game to each other because oh, it's got guns in it. It's just lazy, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about No Man's Sky, it doesn't really have a story. Like, there is a loose plot about trying to find the center of the galaxy and stuff, but it's more of a create and kind of do things. It has more in common with Minecraft. You can create things, build stuff, and all this thing. And the thing is, in Starfield, you're gonna have this Bethesda story. Things like Fallout 3, 4, Skyrim, Oblivion, those types of quests, but in space. And you don't get that in No Man's Sky. You're gonna have base building and ship building in Starfield, but you don't have it on that level on No Man's Sky. And it's I think the fact that we've seen 15 minutes of gameplay, it should sway people enough to say, okay, it's not like No Man's Sky. But I don't know, man. It's just strange because it's one of the most hyped games ever. You can put it up there with Starfield. Starfield, I should say Elden Ring. Elden Ring was hyped for years. It came out, and against all odds, it was the game people wanted. It literally lived up to expectations. And Starfield is like that as well. It was rumored for about a year or two before its announcement, and then it was announced in I think 2016 or something with just like the logo and the satellite floating in space. And then we got the full reveal last year. And I just think it's weird that we're at a point where, after seeing 15 minutes of gameplay, there's all this hype, and originally it was a PlayStation 4/5 exclusive, because Sony was trying to get exclusivity, and now that it's, just an Xbox game and PC game, that people have kind of gone back on it and said, like, I don't understand the hype. Like, people don't understand the hype of a new Bethesda RPG? Skyrim, one of the best-selling games ever made? Like, that's what I just don't get. Is it jealousy? Is the whole fanboy thing creeping in? Because whenever I see people talk about Starfield in a negative way, I go to their profile and it's all PlayStation stuff. Like, I see PC gamers hyped for Starfield. I see Xbox gamers hyped for Starfield. I don't actually see Nintendo gamers, saying anything bad against Starfield. But, like, I don't know, man. Like, do you think it's just a fanboy thing?
I think fanboyism definitely plays a part in it, and like there's always some knuckleheads on there. Whether it's a PlayStation game that's coming out and people are like, "Oh, they're reusing animations." I'm like, walking is walking. Of course, they would reuse that animation or something like that. That's just low hanging fruit to attack. Or if it's an Xbox game, there's like, "Oh, this looks like a 360 title," or it's dated, or it's like, LOL bug Thesda and like just dumb stuff. It's just regurgitated garbage that we've all heard and seen before, and I'm super stoked for it. I think, like you said, like Elden Ring, this game is one of the most hyped and anticipated titles of recent memory, and I think it's going to deliver and it's going to be massive. The one concern I have about it right now is the gunplay, honestly, because I was not a big fan of the gunplay I saw at the Xbox show. I mean, they have time obviously to fine tune that and change it. That it's not the biggest deal in the world and it won't shift if I love the game or not. But that's the one area of concern I have for it. But other than that, I'm all systems go for that game.
It's funny you mentioned that. I've noticed that RPGs with first person shooter combat, they never really nail it. Cyberpunk, amazing game. The first person shooter combat, it's okay. Deus Ex, one of my favorite franchises, Human Revolution and Mankind Divided. The gunplay it's okay. Like it's passable. But like, when it comes to like first person combat, like in Skyrim and stuff, like I could aim a bow and arrow like no one else in that game. The sword combat, you basically just swing away. The magic in that game is probably where it's at for combat. Fallout combat isn't the best, but the game's amazing. So I can actually look past, okay first person shooter combat if it's an amazing game. Like again, Fallout 3, one of my favorite games of all time. The gunplay is beyond terrible. But I will see. Probably will see more game. I think we will see more gameplay probably at the Game Awards or something. It's been long enough. I think what it'll be about 6 months then. But yeah, I can't wait for it, and I think Starfield, it's going to be a stellar RPG, pun intended. Before we go on to the even bigger topics, Logan, you want to talk about backwards compatibility. I want to know what you meant. Did you mean Sony's VR stuff?
Oh, that is part of it, yeah. Like, I don't know. It's quite interesting that they always spent, and no, I have a PS5, I play PlayStation, I play Nintendo, I have all this. This is not coming from a bad place, but it's just it's it's quite illuminating how they create PSVR 2 and then just say, all these older titles are just not going to work on it. And but then there's already been some hints and teases from some folks that, you know, it seems like there's going to be PSVR 1 titles getting re-released. I know, shocker, for a PSVR 2, to where you'll have to buy it again for these titles instead of just being able to play it. like because you own it, and it just seems like their typical mantra of no smart delivery and making you rebuy things again instead of respecting your purchases and your decisions you've made as a consumer, like Xbox has been doing. I mean, Xbox isn't perfect in the regard. There's still some titles I want BC that aren't yet for various reasons, and hopefully they can add them. But it it's quite interesting, especially when Sony has been putting some PR stunts out in the media to try to make them seem like the victim and the big bad Microsoft's gonna damage the industry and stuff when they're pulling crap like this is just it's comical. And then Windows Central had a poll about backwards compatibility and about how often do people use it for Xbox because of recent events. They just wanted to look at it again. And last I checked, it was like over 64% said they use it heavily on the Xbox platform for the voters who have taken part, which I thought was really good news to me.
Yeah, I saw that poll. I'll be honest, I play 360 games every single week. Every single week, without fail, I play a 360 game every week. Because those games hold up, in my opinion. I think backwards compatibility is important. This isn't like a crap on PlayStation segment. Like I was thinking about getting a PlayStation 5 because for their games, and then they raised the price. They raised the price £30, which it's hard enough to get a console anyway. And then you have like the secondary market where you have places like CEX selling PlayStations, Xboxes for almost £700, and now they're probably going to charge more. Thanks for the super chat, Nick W. Would love if Xbox added Eternal Sonata for backwards compatibility. You know what? I've seen
Amen.
I've seen a few people now mention Eternal Sonata. That's a pretty highly requested one. I think before we get back onto the whole PlayStation thing, I think there's a lot of like games just locked to the Xbox 360, like Eternal Sonata, like that isn't back. People would like things like Resonance of Fate. I think that's a Sega game or Square Enix game on Xbox. Because there's a remaster, but it's not on Xbox. And there's just so many games locked to the Xbox 360. Like I think there's about 600 games from the 360 era backwards compatible, but there's still like thousands, literally thousands. Like you can remove the sports games because of the licenses and stuff. Like I think Medal of Honor, for instance, Medal of Honor 2012, I'm 90% sure that can't be backwards compatible because it has a Linkin Park song in there. I could be wrong, but I'm fairly sure that maybe that's why, because I'm certain that there's a Linkin Park song in that game. But again, I would love that to be backwards compatible. 2010's version of Medal of Honor is bloody amazing. One of the best first-person shooter campaigns I've ever played. But yeah, backwards compatibility is important. And to say PlayStation VR, and to clarify, PlayStation VR works on PlayStation 5. The thing is, PlayStation VR 1 games won't work in PlayStation VR 2, meaning you will have to have two headsets ready hooked up to play your entire library. And as someone that doesn't like wires, it's a bit inconvenient. And I feel bad for people that are gonna upgrade, because one of my mates has PlayStation VR and I've played it. I've played Resident Evil 7, the Rick and Morty game, and the Batman VR game. It's only 15 minutes long or something, but that's really cool in my opinion. This isn't a dog on PlayStation thing. I think some of those games are cool. Again, I can't really use VR due to the whole motion sickness thing, but from what I played, I can see how people can see enjoyment in that. But the fact that you can't use your games in the new headset, and I understand why for technical limitations. PlayStation VR, those games track light balls, the PlayStation Move controllers. The new, headset doesn't use them. There's not even a camera, to attach to your TV. So people are going to be forced to buy the games again unless there's free upgrades. Which I'm not going to lie, I wouldn't surprise me if they are forced to charge for them. Sony's proven that they're going to charge for these games. Like again, $70 games for remakes, like calling things remasters, even though they're just a generation old. Like, look at Spider-Man Remastered. That's a remaster of what, a 3-year-old game when that came out. Like, and it was fine. And we'll probably say for other games, and it's just a shame because I don't want people to be charged like really high for games they already have. Like, I look at like things like Control, right? I loved Control. The fact that I had to pay for a new game to get the upgrade was really disappointing. Like, that shouldn't be a thing. And even I think 505 Games said afterwards, like, they regret that decision. I remember someone saying that, but yeah, charging for upgrades and all that stuff and backwards compatibility, like, it's a bit scummy in my opinion. Like, if the games can be backwards compatible or given as free upgrades, it should be. And even if the upgrades would cost money to make, I think Sony should foot the bill for the indie developers to patch them over. That would generate goodwill. Because let's face it, Xbox has a lot of goodwill at the minute. They're friendly to developers. They offer multiple different ways to get consoles, via all access and stuff. And, games are getting free upgrades all the time. And it's generating goodwill. Goodwill is important in gaming. Sony's lost a lot. Look at CD Projekt Red, right? They had more goodwill than any other developer in the world, practically. And then Cyberpunk came out in its state it was in, used to be in, and they lost all that goodwill overnight. Literally overnight. And now they're on this upswing again. They've put out all these updates over time. The next generation upgrade is amazing. And, people are now looking forward to more Cyberpunk. And I think Sony has to do some goodwill moves, in my opinion. Will they? They might. I don't know. Do you think they'll actually charge for these upgrades?
The realist in me says I think they will. I would like to be wrong on this. I would like them to, be nice and just let people have a free upgrade, but considering their recent behavior on pricing and upgrades and availability on things, I wouldn't have high hopes for that.
Yeah, it's looking that way, and hopefully people will get the upgrades for free. Even because the VR games, they are cheaper. We'll see. Who knows? Maybe Microsoft will put out a free upgrade for Skyrim. Who knows? Anyway, we'll move on. Okay. Xbox DRM. It's been an issue since the launch of the Xbox One. You can't play certain games offline, all that stuff. And it's because the way the console was built and how the back-end DRM works with Microsoft's games. And over time, it's gotten better. For instance, the Xbox One, it didn't have the full DRM thing, meaning you could play games offline, at least some of them. But that also carried over to the Xbox Series consoles, and now there's an update out for Xbox where most of that DRM stuff is gone. And I was wondering this because when I had no internet, I was able to play 360 games I got via Xbox Live Gold when I wasn't able to in the past, offline. And it looks like they're finally fixing that back-end stuff, meaning we can play games offline. And certain Xbox One games, the Xbox Series X version is going to be arriving on the disc if there's enough space. But it's a good thing because people have been wanting this for years. It's a good move. You saw this, right?
Yeah, it's only a positive thing to make it to where you can have access to your games that you own, anytime, online, offline. I mean, like, for example, you've had cable issues with internet and stuff with storms and other stuff. Other people have that to where it's like, if I want to be able to play a game but I don't have my internet right now, if I own it, I should be able to play it, especially if I have it physically. And the fact that we had that outage earlier this year, last year, that was like several days, was frankly unacceptable, but I'm glad they fixed it. And it's not 100% perfect yet, no DRM, but it's definitely better than it was, and I applaud the team and thank them for what they've done so far.
Yeah, I mean, when I had like a week without internet, by the way, a week without internet is torturous. Like, I have no idea how anyone can live without internet. I've been telling my family, I called it the Guantanamo Bay experience. because like I was going crazy. But yeah, no internet, not good. Well, I was wondering, like, when my internet was off, like, why was I able to play these games? I was able to play Soul Hackers, even though it has, like, online connectivity for some reason. Like, I was noticing I was able to play more games than I previously could. So I just thought it was me or just my Xbox, and I must have got the update early or whatever. But either way, it's a good thing. If you like playing more games offline, you're gonna have a better job at it. I wish it did go back to the 360 days though. On Xbox 360, the achievements were integrated into the games and the console itself. They weren't really app based, so like if you play an Xbox 360 game offline, achievements pop, and then when you connect to Xbox Live, they register and everything's good. But on Xbox One and Series consoles, like if you've been disconnected at some point, achievements don't pop if you're offline. But as soon as you get connected to the internet, they show up. You've probably noticed that, right?
Yeah, it's a bugaboo of the Xbox ecosystem sometimes to where it's like I've unlocked a few achievements when I've been offline because of internet outage or whatever, and then eventually they magically reappear when my internet comes back. But there have been a few that I have unlocked that it never gave me credit for, even when I had internet back. So it's odd, but it's definitely better than it was.
Yeah, it's a good thing that's getting better. I just missed the 360 days where everything was simple. Like, it was a much simpler time. Like, I treasure those memories so much because it was just so much better. But hey, it's good news. And, I hope one day we can get the achievement situation sorted. I know that might be a bit more difficult situation, but hey, I love the 360 days. I'm just a big nerd for the 360 generation. I love that generation. I was wanting achievements to pop so much when my internet was off. I did the tethering thing with my mobile phone data. Oof, by the way, that eats mobile data like there's no tomorrow. But yeah, just to get achievements, like to get them to pop, I was connected to my phone. But yeah, good news for everyone. We'll move on. Again, if anyone's enjoying the show, please like, share, and subscribe. We've got super chats on, helps the channel out, all that stuff. Okay, TGS happened. And if you've been a fan of Xbox for a long time, you'll know that TGS means just a few trailers of games we already know about, and that's pretty much it. And it's expected, right? We know Xbox's state in Japan for decades now, but Microsoft's constantly trying. They want to break into the region more, and now more than ever, Xbox Series consoles are selling really well. And this previous TGS was arguably not just the best one to date, but up there with some of their E3s, in my opinion, because a lot of the announcements surprised people. And, one of the games, the smaller games, was Pal World, which is a 3D open world Pokemon style game, but there's a catch. The Pokemon, or the Pals, or whatever you call them, and you use AK-47s and guns. I never knew I needed this in my life until I saw the trailer. It looks amazing. Did you see it by any chance?
Yes, I did, and I had never heard of it, but my goodness, I felt my Pokemon obsession coming back and returning, and it just plus it looks RPG like, and then there's weapons and new capture elements. That game looks awesome. Like overall, Tokyo Game Show was like this might sound absurd, but it was maybe their best show of the year. Like, I would put it up there, right up there with their E3, or like equal, if not better, in my opinion, because of just the amount of stuff that fans have been asking for a decade. Finally, all coming in like a flood wave, hitting the platform. Nino, Kunai 1 and 2, and then the Persona games and more Spike Chunsoft titles. Other developers finally acknowledging Xbox exists, and then hints of even more stuff. It was a brilliant show, and the future is very bright in Japan for Xbox.
Yeah, and they announced a bunch of other games coming to Xbox. So there's a game called Taiyan Ding. I don't know what that is. Looks cool. There's a game called Guilty Gear is coming to Xbox in 2023. Blaze Blue something. Hold on, let me give us a second. Oh, Blaze Blue Battle Tag. Cross tag battle. By the way, the naming conventions for fighting games is all over the place. Ghost Law, really cool announcements. But the biggest announcements were probably the new Danganronpa game. I think it's version 2. That's on Xbox now. But the biggest announcement was Ni no Kuni, Wrath of the White Witch remastered. Like, that game did not leak at all, ever, and it was a nice surprise. And that was one of the best announcements of, the whole thing, because it was a surprise. I've been wanting to play this a long time. I almost got it for the PS3 back in the day, but I couldn't stand that. I can't stand that DualShock 2 or 3 or whatever it was. I can't stand that D-pad. But yeah, it's now on Xbox. It's in Game Pass. And yeah, it's 4K, 60 frames per second on Series X and all that stuff. Have you played that yet by any chance?
I have not. I've been currently playing AI Somnium right now. So getting my JRPG fix on, but with a different franchise at the moment.
Well, it's got that Studio Ghibli artwork. It's a gorgeous game. It's got English and Japanese voice support. But it was like completely out of nowhere. And then the sequel is coming out next year, also on Game Pass. But these are huge titles, and it's good to see, because like I think this is one of the few games like people thought would never come over. Like, again, everything leaks in 2022. This didn't at all. So I hope we can see more of that in the future. It's a big push for Microsoft to have all these games like Blaze Blue and all that stuff. Persona's coming soon. Like, a Persona is going to be on Xbox in like a month. Like, that's crazy. It just goes to show how far Microsoft have came, like, since the early Xbox One generation, where there were next to no JRPGs at all. Like, I think the first major JRPG on Xbox One was probably Final Fantasy 15. That might have been the first major one, and probably the last major one up until Dragon Quest 11 and Yakuza Like a Dragon. But hey, great for Xbox players. People have been wanting more JRPGs. I know people joke online saying people don't play them, but the truth is, like, if you search Xbox and JRPGs on Twitter, there's thousands of people wanting it. And we are just in this tiny bubble on Twitter of people. So that's probably millions of Xbox gamers that have never had the chance to play these games on their preferred platform. So hey, it's awesome for everyone. And, it just grows the fan base. Like, Persona's going to have a huge fan base now because of this. I will say this. People are bringing up the whole Soul Hackers thing. I don't know if you saw the sales today, Logan, that, it didn't chart on Xbox. And I'll tell you why. It's had no marketing at all. Like, gamers on Xbox aren't used to seeing, Atlas games on the platform. And then this game comes to Xbox without any marketing whatsoever. Like, can people really be surprised that the game's not selling well? Or am I just crazy?
No, you're 100% right. And like, we always talk about Square and their knucklehead decisions about things, but this one's on Sega and Atlas, honestly, because it's like you finally start releasing these games on Xbox, thank goodness, and we're so super grateful and happy for it. But they release a franchise that is very unheard of, and then you release the second one onto the platform and just like, have at it. And then you don't even advertise or market it. Basically, the only people I've seen talking about it are you, and then other people in the community, and then a couple Xbox execs when it first launched. That's it. It basically got thrown out there like Guardians of the Galaxy did, where people are like, what in the is this thing? And like, I've never even heard of this. So overall, I think Japanese games have been doing great on Xbox, and there's a clear appetite. People are starving out there for more Japanese content for Xbox. But that game in particular, I think it was just a set of circumstances that kind of set it up to not do so well.
Yeah, Persona is like this known quantity. Everyone on Earth has heard of Persona, But Soul Hackers, like it's a sequel to a 25-year-old game. Like I bought it, it's in my hand, and the thing is, Sega's logo isn't even on the front of the box. It's located right on the back, tiny little space in the bottom left hand corner. But that's it. Like I haven't seen any advertisements for it. But like I'm not going to put this on Xbox or the gamers at Xbox. Like it's Square and whoever's job, not Square. I'm not used to blaming Square that they pop up in my head every time I'm complaining about something. Bloody hell. Anyway, yeah. So Sega, whoever's marketing Soul Hackers, they need to do a better job. But other than that, Tokyo Game Show 2022, huge success. A lot of cool announcements. Again, Persona comes out next month. Funny enough, you can actually get the collector's edition of Persona 5 on Xbox, which really surprised me. I did not expect that at all. That said, Persona 4 and 3 will not get physical editions. I've been asked that a few times, just thought I'd clarify. But anyway, TGS was good. Persona releases next month. And next we'll move on to Dance Moves Ryan. Everyone knows what I'm talking about. Jim Ryan.
You have a prepared statement at this time?
Yeah, I mean, look, like, he said some weird stuff over the years, right? He said that nobody wants to play backwards compatible games. Like, when he saw the old Gran Turismo's playing at some event, he was like, I don't know why people would want to play this. And, you know, people are against that. He's said some, like, weird things in the past. He's had some extremely awful takes on some subjects. And, you know, when it comes to the whole exclusivity thing, like he said, like, you know, it'll harm PlayStation gamers. But it's like, it's not Xbox's job to do that. Like, why is it okay for PlayStation to money hat third-party exclusives such as Final Fantasy VII? I know people may be getting sick of that game getting brought up, but that is the big outlier when it comes to third-party exclusives. Like, that one title. But, like, where is Jimbo thinking about, you know, the Xbox gamers for Final Fantasy? Where, you know, what about the Spider-Man fans? Like, guess what? I used to play Spider-Man games on Xbox. Like, there were tons of Spider-Man games. There was Shattered Dimensions. There was a lot, you know, Spider-Man 3, Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2. But then you just have, like, you know, like, these games being PlayStation now. You have KOTOR, heavily, you know, Xbox-centric title. The remake is going to be on PlayStation. Although that's in a weird state at the minute, but that doesn't really matter. But, like, Jimbo, we call him Jimbo because, you know, he acts like a clown. Like, this businessman says this weird stuff, which he's clearly not meant to say. Like, when he said, oh, it's inadequate, the amount of time, you know, Xbox is willing to put Call of Duty on PlayStation. It's like, I understand where he's coming from, but professional speaking, it's dog crap. Like, he shouldn't have said it. Like, that will be brought up. Like, the thing is, Microsoft, like, they're going into Phase 2. Like, just to clarify, what exactly is Phase 2, Logan?
Phase 2 is to be expected for any acquisition past a certain point of threshold for market share or the financial commitment. And I would say that $70 billion definitely qualifies. Let alone it being Activision Blizzard. So this was to be expected, but CMA putting out a release about it, and then, you know, Sony throwing in a oh, good job, we're so thankful for this, looking out for the state of the gamers and the gaming industry, and this could be potentially greatly damaging to all this nonsense. It's like, did Sony write this PR and send it to them and ask them to pass this along? Like, what is going on? This whole thing is just bizarre.
Yeah, the statement by the CMA was basically saying, oh, they're going to look into it, and Sony was thankful. Of course they'd be thankful. Like, it did look like, you're right, it did look like Sony wrote as, like, PR. But the thing is, I do think the Activision deal will go through. Microsoft has committed to 3 years post the deal, so post the Activision's current deal, which means 2028, 2027, until we get specifics. But like I've said before, that lines up with Microsoft's next generation. Like the Xbox, I'm going to call it Series Y, why not? Like that could launch potentially with an exclusive Call of Duty game, and I think that scares the living hell out of Sony. Now, do I think Call of Duty going exclusive to Xbox, would that absolutely destroy PlayStation? No, they're gonna be fine. Someone from EA today just said that it gives us hope because we have this Battlefield game and it's multi-platform. And it's like Battlefield's in the worst state it's ever been. He shouldn't have said that. But yeah, I will say this: Microsoft buying Activision and the whole state of the whole Call of Duty thing. I've seen today a lot of people bring up that PlayStation should buy EA. Like, I thought buying publishers was bad. Like, am I right, Logan? Am I off base? Like, isn't that right? Like, isn't buying studios isn't that a bad thing? Like, that doesn't sound like organic growth. Buying EA.
Yeah, I mean, buying studios and day one releases and a subscription service and a free backwards compatibility and all these things, they're only negatives if the green company does it. If the blue company does it, then it's great revelation, gift from the heavens, just wow, this is just wonderful strategic thinking. And of course, I'm being facetious, but you get the point. It's such a just comically double standard. It's ridiculous, and it's gonna keep happening until Sony eventually caves in and does these things. And then it'll be praised, and then it'll be universally expected, and then all these people will move on. That's just the way it goes.
And whenever people bring up, like, what would the current situation be if, let's say, Sony bought Activision? Like, everyone always says the exact same thing. It would be allowed. Like, people would expect that the games would be exclusive. Like, people across the board know that. But the CMA, like, that's very suspicious. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Microsoft looks into that because it is a bit suspicious, let's be honest. It does look like Sony bought that. I think the deal will go through. I think maybe by March next year. I don't think we'll have to be waiting until like next summer. I basically just want the deal to go ahead so I can get all those games on Game Pass and also get Singularity 2. Right? I'm gonna push Singularity 2 for as long as humanly possible because I want it. And plus, I would like the idea of all of those secondary studios, such as like High Noon Studios and Raven Software. I would like to see them make games again. Like, enough with making Call of Duty content. Like, put them onto their own titles. Like, there's enough developers making Call of Duty on the main teams that I don't think they need that. Like, and here's the thing: 90% of the players play Warzone now. So, do they really need all those people making secondary maps? Maybe that's just a weird Call of Duty take from me, but I don't know. I just like to see the studios make more games. But yeah, I think the deal will go through. Just wait a few months. We have to wait and see what Jimbo says next. People call him Dance Moves Ryan for a reason. Just the things he says, he backtracks and stuff. Like, think about it like this, right? Microsoft at the beginning of this generation said, look, we are going to have cross-generation games for 2 years, and that's that. And people lost their minds. Remember? Like, everyone was losing their mind, like, oh, so there's no reason to buy an Xbox, like, Series X or S. And that was going on for ages. And then, like, 2 months or so before the launch of the PlayStation 3, I should say PlayStation 5, like, it turns out that Sony's working on a bunch of cross-generation games, and they aren't leaning into the new generation. And people let that slide. So all that pushback Microsoft got for about a year and a half, 2 years, Sony got away with it overnight. And then, charging more for upgrades when originally they said, Horizon Forbidden West was going to get a free upgrade. And, the CMA, shouldn't they take this into account? Like, all these bad moves, negative moves they've pushed against the gaming industry. But, Microsoft buying Activision is a bad thing, and it's bad for, like, Sony's competitiveness in the UK, which is sketchy because, guess what? Nintendo, Sega, Microsoft, Sony, they've all been number one at some point in the United Kingdom. But now only Sony's allowed to be number one? That's very suspicious. I don't know. Like, I don't like doing the whole tinfoil hat thing and, like, saying, like, certain companies are biased, but you read that statement and it's like, which hand did they put the money or check in? It's all over the place. I just want the deal to be done so we can stop talking about acquisitions. Like you have to admit, Logan, it's a bit long in the tooth now. It's every news story is acquisitions. Microsoft, Sony, who they buying?
Yeah, I agree. Like, it's hard not to get tinfoil hat about stuff. Like, I don't think they're being malicious or anything like that. I think that Sony has done a very good job in PR of making it come off like, hey, we're the underdog, we're this, we're that. And then for those who are actually in the know and follow the industry or cover the industry or involved in it, you can go, unk. Like, I can't believe you have the audacity and the arrogance to put out what you're saying right now about woe is me, this, when we have like a whole black book of secrets of type stuff you do all the time that everybody knows about and talks about. And so I have a feeling that if this went to court, Microsoft, there's a good chance would probably bring up a whole bunch of that stuff. Just like, when Epic sued Apple over Fortnite, and
Oh
then
yeah.
some Sony docs got dragged into public, and then that weren't meant to be. And then it's like, oh, you guys have a crossplay tax. Interesting. And then the Resident Evil 8, Village blocking from Game Pass and like some of that stuff. I think if this went to court, which I don't think it will, I think it'll pass. But if it did, I think that would potentially be more damaging for them than what they're saying they're afraid of, which is COD being on Xbox, which Xbox has already said we're not making exclusive anyway because it makes no business sense. And then at the end of the day, it's like, what's better, having COD at least for 3 more years past what was legally required, or no COD at all? Like, just the audacity and arrogance of it is mind numbing.
I just had this thing play out in my head. That old YouTube clip of someone going, "I can't believe you've done this." I just pictured Jim Ryan doing that. Because I don't know. But yeah, I think Jim Ryan, like, he needs to, like, quiet a bit. Like, people praise what, like, Phil Spencer is a really good PR guy, right? Across the board. Every interview he does, he comes across professional, all this stuff. Jim Ryan happens to say the wrong thing a lot of the time, and people notice. Like, there's reset error threads about everything Phil says, and it's usually filled with people going, "Oh yeah, he's actually a good PR guy." But whenever Jim Ryan enters the chat, all hell breaks loose. But yeah, like you were saying during the whole Apple and Epic thing, like the Sony thing and the whole like crossplay tax thing. I completely forgot about that. They do charge for that type of stuff. It's just one of the reasons why we don't see crossplay with a lot of big games. Fortunately, like I think future big fighting games will have that. But yeah, it's a bad situation. I know we've been talking about Sony a lot, but the Activision thing does affect Sony in the end, in one way or another. And Microsoft has a lot to gain from this. Game Pass will become probably it's needed. I put it like this: the day the whole Activision acquisition went live, and it broke news cycles or whatever, I went to Tesco, went to buy an Xbox, what do you call it, gift card. And as I put the thing on the counter, the guy actually mentioned, someone I've never seen in Tesco before, mentioned that he heard about Xbox buying COD, that's how he referred to it, and he was thinking about getting Game Pass because of it. Like, this person who probably doesn't keep up with gaming news, heard about it and thought Game Pass equals COD. Like, that's the power of Call of Duty. People can hate on Call of Duty all day, not play it. They may be Battlefield players or ex-Call of Duty players. You have to realize Call of Duty is a juggernaut in the industry, and it's one of the biggest titles. It's the best-selling game most years, right? Even when it's on an incline, right, or downfall or whatever, like, it's still the best-selling game of the year, right? And people have to realize that. Like, if the Activision deal goes through, Microsoft could probably have close to 70 to 80 million subscribers in Game Pass, which is huge. Like, that's money going back into the service. That's them getting bigger titles, day one in the service, and it might get to a point where you'd see a lot of huge titles by Warner Brothers, EA, Ubisoft would go to Game Pass day one because they could afford it, and they would actually be still be making money on it. So like in the end, Game Pass subscribers are going to gain a lot. You're going to gain the back catalogue of Activision games. We're probably going to see more backwards compatible games, in my opinion. That's been a rumor. There's a lot of Activision games still not backwards compatible, and just new titles. People can say like, "Oh, you're wanting the deal to go through to shill for Microsoft." I don't care what they say. It's just going to get more games in the end, and that's what I care about most. Before we leave the show, last topic. It's been a debate recently that will the xCloud or cloud services take over hardware in the next decade or so? And as someone that uses xCloud every single day to get my Microsoft reward points, it's a good service, right? Streaming is a viable solution to game on, not long term, in my opinion. I couldn't play hours at a time on streaming. You notice the resolution dip and all that stuff. You can have really good internet, and it's still not going to be like playing natively on a console. So while I do think it is an option, if you want to play Forza or something in the garden, why not? Awesome, right? But if you want to stream games onto your big television in the living room, it's not a solution yet, in my opinion. And I don't think it will be for at least 2 decades. I think we've got maybe 2 or 3 more generations left in console hardware. What do you think, Logan?
Yeah, I think it's definitely way better than it has been in the past, and it's like what I always dreamed about when I was little. Playing on Game Boy, playing Pokemon Red or Blue, and then as I got older, it's like, man, I wish I could play my Xbox or my PlayStation games on the go. Then now, lo and behold, we can. It's obviously not as good and pristine as like a native experience, but it's pretty good for the most part. There's still some limitations in some games that they don't have on it, but I could see definitely eventually a scenario where it is equal to console, but I don't think we're near that point. And as Phil has said, they have no plans to stop making consoles. They want to be able to appeal to everyone, no matter where they are or how they play. Whether you play on your phone, you're on the bus, or you're in a doctor's office and you're in the waiting room and you're just killing time, or you're at home and you want to play on your Series X, or you hit a road trip and you're at a hotel, so you just hook up a Series S because it's small and convenient. Like wherever you want to play, you can play. Or even with the Samsung thing, like you can just download it directly to a TV and not even have a console. So it just, in the end, they want to be wherever anybody wants to play games. So I think consoles will be here for the very foreseeable future.
Yeah, I don't think people should be worrying just yet. And plus, like, this generation's been weird, right? 90% of games have been delayed into 2023 because of the pandemic and all that stuff. Like, people are already talking about next generation, but this generation really hasn't started. Not really. Again, all the delays and stuff. People haven't been able to buy next generation consoles for the past 2 years. Like, I was looking to get mine pre-ordered for launch, but like most people couldn't. It's hard for people to buy hardware as it is. Never mind people talking about mid-gen refreshes and next generation. But the topic is there, and cloud, it's cool. Like I said, I've been using xCloud every day to play Fortnite to get my Microsoft reward points. Just wondering, is that available in the US yet?
What was that? Sorry.
Playing Fortnite on xCloud to get Microsoft reward points.
I haven't seen rewards points for that in particular in the US, but we do have rewards points for a whole bunch of different games, especially for regular usage.
All right, because they added this thing, like, I know Brazil and the UK, so a lot of people in those areas have it that, if you open the official Xbox app, and not the Game Pass app, the Xbox app, and you go to the profile page, there's a bunch of things, a link with your Steam account, a link with your social account, and play Microsoft Duel, which is you can get done in about 30 seconds, and there's one that used to be play multiplayer on PC gaming. Well, they replaced that with play xCloud Fortnite on your mobile device, and I play that, and I get 250 Microsoft Award points just for playing Fortnite, which is pretty cool. I think they're going to expand that to other areas, and that's a different topic for another day, but yeah, hardware's here to stay, I wouldn't worry. xCloud, it's cool, but here's the thing, right? Can you remember the online service back in 2007, I should say 2009 and 10, called OnLive?
No, that doesn't ring a bell, honestly.
So OnLive was a video game streaming service back in 2009 and 10, where literally you'd pay for a subscription and you'd have access to like streaming games, and you could also buy games up front. You could literally play it on tablets, laptops, PCs, whatever. But you could also get a device in the house, which was basically it would basically act as like a dummy computer. So basically, you just put it against your TV, you'd hook up a controller and play that. OnLive was basically where all this stuff started, and the gameplay experience back then was pretty bad. 2009-ish. But I will say this: the technologies came a long way. The video games back then used to be pixelated. Like, I'm not even kidding. It used to be like watching Game Boy games. It was so pixelated back then. But the technologies came a long way. I can play Fortnite at full resolution on my mobile at 60 frames, and it's flawless. But it dips now and then. The resolution dips, but, whatever. It's a viable solution. But, yeah, it's a weird topic that just came up recently. I think, Xbox consoles are here to stay for at least, I'm going to put it out there, 3 more generations. I'll put it out there. This generation is going to be a weird, long one. But yeah, that's pretty much it for today. Logan, have you got anything else coming up?
Not at the moment, but I'm formulating some article ideas.
All right, it's been a good show, and guess what? This has been our first podcast to date without any porn bots. Congratulations!
Oh.
Yeah, it only took like 50 episodes or something. That's a first. Everyone in chat's been awesome. Again, we'll be back next week at the same time. We couldn't fit all of the topics, so some will move into next week. And, given the current landscape of gaming, who knows what's going to pop up next week. All hell will break loose. Jimbo will say something else that's stupid. Square Enix will do something dumb. Another game will probably leak. It always does. Anyway, everyone's been awesome in chat. We'll be back the exact same time next week. Hope everyone's enjoyed it. Anyway, we are out. See ya.